This is the clinic for exercise number 48 from Pottag's Preparatory Melodies for Solo Work. The tempo of this is listed as adagio. A lot of people misunderstand what adagio means. Adagio isn't a slow tempo, it's more moderate. Adagio means flowing. It is moderate but relaxed. So I like to think about this being in the range of 78 through about 83. This piece requires a lot of flexibility. There's undulating passages. You need to keep the air moving. A couple things that will help you illustrate what you need to do. First of all is whistling. Notice it takes a lot of air to try to get that any type of pitch out when I go down there. I'm using twice as much air. So there's another way we can illustrate this that you can actually play. I've done this before on another previous exercise, but it bears repeating. This type of thing comes from the Viennese tradition, where they work on airflow. So if you stay on the F horn, half valve everything, and play, you're going to get sort of a weird sound. But it takes a good amount of air to do this. So what I would suggest is put your metronome on, and slur this. You're not going to get all the pitches, even approximate the contour. Now I'm going to go on into this next section because this technique is exceptionally beneficial here. So once you do that, I know it sounds crazy, but it really does work. So I'm going to go and play the beginning of this, and after I've done this, and it's going to make things a lot more easy for me. By the way, did you catch my mistake on this first pass when I did? There's a trap here. If you look at the pickup note into measure 3, I played that wrong. I played that as an 8th note. It's a 16th. Don't fall into that trap. That's an error that could cost you. Makes things flow a whole lot easier. Another consideration being that a lot of people watching this video are coming in from the band tradition. We rarely play in sharp keys. Those of you that play in youth orchestras or have some high school orchestra experience, it's not going to be that much of a stretch. But still, we have to make sure that we play within the key. So D major, practice your D scales. get it under your fingers. While D major, key of 2 sharps, shouldn't be all that problematic, this exercise, though, is a little odd in that even though we are in the key of D major, the key of D, or the tonic of D, or the arrival, doesn't really occur until the end of the first section. So you have sort of a gray area starting off. So he's really lining up A right here. Oh, by the way, right there where I just stopped, 1, 2, 3, 4 bars in, the rhythm in that on beat 3 is an error. There should be a dot at the end of that 16th. Now here we actually have a D major scale, and he firmly entrenches D. Let's talk about the time signature for a little bit. It's in 3. It says 3 beats or pulses to a bar, but an 8th note gets a beat. It's a little bit unusual. This comes from an older classical tradition where slower movements were written in 4/8 and 3/8, just simply to save manuscript paper. If 8th note gets a pulse when you have 16th notes, those are like 8th notes in 4/4 time, half a count. When you have 32nd notes, this would equate to 16th notes in 4/4 time, 4 notes to a pulse, 1 T theta, 2 T theta, 3 T theta, 4 T theta, or whatever counting system that you're using. So what I suggest you do is we're going to really put this tempo down really slow. And you should count out this. 3, 1, Tay 3, Tay 1, Tay 1, Tay 3, Tay 1, 3 Ta 1, T Theta 3, Ta 1, T Theta 3, Tay 1, Tay 2, Tay 3, Theta 1. Now notice, I subdivide all those short rhythms, and when I work with students, I still subdivide through those, but I whisper, implying that you're not articulating, but you keep the wind going. Now, let's address another stylistic trait of this, and this occurs starting at the end of line 1 as well as the end of the second line. And this is the mark of slur with the staccato dot. Sort of odd. It's an articulated slur. You stop and ponder that for a second, and you think, well, that's legato. Right. If you do this as legato with an ever so slight lean on each note, first I'll do it slurred. And then tongue. So you have a nice effect. With your air, make sure that your air column is consistently moving forward, no stagnant air. That's the reason I use the half valve. So if you go all the way through this, as I said earlier, it will help you establish a nice, consistently solid airstream that you can use easy to play every measure of this. Lastly, I'm going to give you some special fingerings that might make this a little bit easier for you. If we look at the last measure of the top line, where you're coming off the B, an easy solution would be to rely a little bit more on B flat horn for that descending. So you're going to stay on the B flat horn all the way down to your A. And then when you play your second note A, remain on 1 and 2 all the way down. So your F sharp and D and low A are going to be played on the B flat horn 1 and 2. Makes it a whole lot easier. If we look in the second line, opening of the second section, we have this figure. Lot of fingers flying, and it's a little bumpy. After you play your initial E and you go down to the C sharp, instead of playing the next note E open, you can also play it on the B flat horn 1 and 2. So like using a trumpet or mellophone fingering. So when you go up, you have your C sharp, E 1 and 2, A 1 and 2, and you just kick on the thumb trigger. Makes it a little bit easier to play, especially faster. Now if I do this traditionally, I can do it, but it seems to be a little bit more work. To me, it isn't as smooth. If you'd rather do it the traditional way, by all means. I'm just throwing these things out that I would do to ease the execution. That same thing that I did would also be applicable for the fifth measure of this second section. You have the repeated passage. Exactly the same. Notice now at the end of the last line, or on the last line I should say, is that we have repeated figure that we found at the end of the top line. We have that descent going down to the A. You stay on 1 and 2, and then the next measure where you have your B down to your A, again stay on 1 and 2, going all the way down to the A. So now we're getting ready to put this whole thing together. With what we know about using air and the special fingerings and the articulation, we can have a wonderful and beautiful melody. So forth like that. It's a very pretty melody. So you're fortunate to get a chance to just let the horns sing. So this concludes this particular clinic. Good luck on working this up and being successful if you're using this for auditions. Thank you.